Our new company is literally called the Conscious Cannabis Project.
Oh, nice.
Excited about that. And then number two, yeah, conflict management, I think is
Mm,
like one of the big issues today. Not me and my wife get along really well, so like I'm not really talking about that, but that's the same thing. But like
mm-hmm.
within your business, it's like so much going on.
Welcome back to another episode of Doing the Most, the Misadventures of Entrepreneurship. I'm your host, Georgie, and today I have a very special guest for you all, Greg Pilla, who I have known for almost 10 years now. We met in my very, very early days, exploring the New York City tech and startup ecosystem and entrepreneurship. We met through this meetup that I created called the Choose Yourself Meetup. And Greg has been an amazing
I forgot, honestly.
we go way back. Has been an amazing friend and colleague ever since. But I would love for you, Greg, to tell us a little bit about who you are, a little bit about your business, and then we'll dive in.
Cool. Happy to. And very happy to be here and hang with you. It is good to like do this with old friends. We've been through it.
Absolutely.
So, okay. Yeah, I guess the story is, maybe I'll do current and then maybe a little background besides that, but uh, I graduated college, I did like 1 year in corporate and, you know, like I think probably everyone you have on that wasn't for me. And so, I've done a variety of businesses. I had a direct sales or network marketing business for like 7 years that when we met, which was awesome. I was with a company called ACN. I, I did well there. And then I did a bunch of like real estate stuff here and there,
Mm-hmm.
kind of property management, like investing, some consulting. And then, 5 or 6 years ago, me and my girlfriend at the time, now wife, kind of got into cannabis, and we didn't move, but we were kind of splitting time between New York and the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Invested in some farms. I was watering, I had suspenders. I was trying to like do the real thing out there, and that ended up not going that well. I think we come back to that maybe later with your next couple questions. Um, but we did like gather the right people out there separately, and then we kind of wanted to be back in New York, and so we started like a CBD company because you could sell CBD nationwide,
Nice.
and that's been great. Like we've been growing that like slow grow kind of for 5 years, like no investors, like all like hustle. Um, and that company's called TribeTokes, and we make like really really healthy CBD products, like really high end, kind of high quality, like vapes and gummies and all sorts of skincare and like beauty products. Uh, Everything's like all natural, plant based, and so that's been going great. And then that company's like doing well. I could get into more of that, but basically, we're also starting a new business.
Ooh.
A lot of people probably have heard like New York has legalized cannabis, but it's waiting on like regulations to finalize.
Yeah.
So we're gonna apply for a manufacturing license to make THC products right in Brooklyn,
Nice.
and that's like a huge undertaking. Uh, and it's like still like over a year out until you could kind of get that type of business up and running. But we're doing like
Mm-hmm.
almost like full-time work now, prepping for it. So that's been crazy but fun. And so I'm excited about that. And that kind of brings me most up to speed. And yeah, I think when we met, like I was doing direct sales, I was like networking with everybody, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't do as much of that anymore, but like those relationships have been amazing like over the years. I called the guy today I haven't talked to probably 5 years to help me with like some real estate stuff for the new business.
Nice. Yeah. So, I love that you highlight how important networking is. And, COVID definitely has made that a little bit harder for folks. My networking takes place now and like doing these interviews, catching up with old friends and colleagues and talking to new people, as well as like some certain websites and going to events. But what New York City ecosystem was like back in like 2013 to, I would say 2013 to 2016, it was hot. Like it was, you're meeting people. There's an event every night. WeWork, that was when like WeWork was doing like their thing, and there was like all the beer and
right, that WeWork, like it was cool back then,
Yeah, it was cool, and it was just that was the thing that you did. You met people, you connected. Everyone was like super connected. Like that's my, and it didn't feel as transactional. Nowadays it feels a little bit more transactional. Things have changed. Everyone has evolved, and also there has been more, how could I say this, resources pumped into the ecosystem. So before it was like a lot more scrappy, so we had to figure it out. I remember some of the choose yourself events that I did back in the day. They were at some of the most random places and just in some interesting areas, and just literally hacking it together. Like, what can we put together? And now, there's so many different resources, event spaces, co-working spaces have more event things, but I don't want to get too sidetracked. So I want to talk about, you mentioned, you're in the cannabis industry. What has that been like? There have been a lot of changes in that industry over the last, even the last 3-4 years, and now there's more changes coming. Like you said, you all are going to open up the business in Brooklyn in about a year or a year and a half, when everything is like fully legal and they process all the documents and the government does their things. But what has that journey been like, being in the cannabis industry?
Yeah, it's really crazy, right? Like, I think it's very relevant for like your topic in this podcast, because general entrepreneurship is like, as we all know, entrepreneurial roller coaster, like crazy ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
And cannabis is like 10 times that, worse than that, ups and downs, because it's just like so crazy with regulation and illegal, legal, and all this nutty and stuff. And so, um, yeah, I mean, I'll tell you a couple stories, I guess.
Yes, let's do it.
I'll tell you the worst story, because I know that's like what you want to hear. But once you go through these crazy ups and downs, like I think probably, as people see like with this podcast and elsewhere, a lot of people do the same type of stuff. Like they experience very similar types of highs and lows.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I did like pretty well with my real estate in Hoboken. I owned, I refinanced my property. This is like the real nuts and bolts. I had like some extra cash, I had like an extra like couple 100,000, like 200,000, whatever. So I was like doing good. I was doing pretty good like in my early days in the 20s, like with my old business and stuff, but I wasn't thinking of a lot of money. That kind of like was the result of my real estate value going up.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I had a little bit of money, and so I wanted to get into cannabis. I was figuring out what to do. And then I ended up kind of partnering with a few people, but one was a friend of mine I knew since I was 5 years old. He's in California. He's got this huge mansion. We're like, athletes, like it was like probably a $6 million place or something. And at all farms, and I was like basically invested some money like in that business, and I was also going to like clean up the business and do my thing, because it was like mostly illegal. We were trying to get like in California, it's very like everything's kind of gray. Yeah. So, but you could do your best to like get licenses and use your lawyers and do all this stuff. So I was working hard on that. And we had real farms. Like there was like 3-4 farms, like pretty big farms, like investors, like stuff happening. And my friend I've known literally my whole life, ends up stealing all my money. My dad stole 200,000 from my dad. Like 2 other people, like successful business people. He was like a super con artist, grew up like in his older age, like very smart con artist, because it's one thing to get like scammed like for whatever, but like we had a real business, like there was real farms, but that was like the tough part. But he was just like stealing the money because it was very manipulative. So that was like, crazy. And that obviously set me back. And then what's also crazy, which a lot of entrepreneurs they probably don't talk about, but a lot of people get into lawsuits, throughout
Mm-hmm.
their career. And if you do like a crazy crime and like, you know, you know, violent crime or something, that's one thing. Financial crimes, it's very hard to catch these guys and like for
Ponzi
example,
scheme. Look at them. You know what I mean? Like that
yeah,
was,
we only hear about the big ones, right? And like
yeah,
my
every
friend was
day.
basically doing a Ponzi scheme. And like for example, me and my dad got a judgment on him in Massachusetts because we had also a property there with like was about to get licensed and stuff, and he like stole all that money. And then the judge was like, "This dude is a criminal, and not only should you get your 200 grand, we're gonna triple it. You guys should make 600 grand off this guy." Guess what? We never saw a dollar, right? They couldn't find him, this and that. You
Oh my
know,
God.
property went to foreclosure, and the government took it kind of thing. And so, and then like it's years later and he owes probably 100 people money at this point.
Mm-hmm.
He's not in jail. He's doing his thing, probably scamming the next guy. So that's like a dark, like depressing story. But the good news, is that it actually like worked out really well for me because through that like bad experience, I met our current business partners that basically like make all our products. They're like genius scientists, kind of, and we're like the vape like masters, and we're like
Mm-hmm.
so good at making cannabis products, and we're all like partnered in my current business and my new business coming up. So it all like worked out in the end just because of like one thing led to another. And but that was like crazy, right? And then the other like, so that's done with that story. Then from like a business standpoint, um we kind of like had a hard time for a long, let's call it 2 years, 3 years, because
Mm-hmm.
we didn't take on any investors. A lot of these, what I see and what like I'm sure you see and a lot of people see is like there's a group of like entrepreneurs, bigger money, like more like Silicon Valley style, but
Like tech stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
like, they basically raise a lot of money. They dump like a ton of money into like advertising, Facebook ads, and then some of these companies work, others, a lot of them don't work.
Mm-hmm.
And like what's weird about the ecosystem is like a lot of them are like almost encouraged to lose money, where
Mm.
they just like the VCs and everybody, they want to like, they'll make like $50 million, but they'll lose like 70 million, and they're like happy about it because they just like raise more money, and like maybe someday they sell for $1 billion or something.
Yeah, and the
It's like weird.
valuation keeps going up. Like
Yeah,
that company, what was it called? I think not Orbit. It was like it was like the little Quibi. It was like Quick Bites or like the Quibi TV show. I think they had like $1 billion valuation, and
great.
it's just like, who needed this, right? When did we ask for 15-minute TV shows? And then they grew super fast, got a bunch of people that were doing like podcasts and actual TV shows. Like I think Kevin Hart was on it, a couple like
Yep.
high name podcasts. What is her name? Chrissy Teigen, a bunch of folks. And then they're
Yeah.
like, actually, we ran out of money. We're gonna be out of business. I'm like, didn't you guys just raise $1 billion? How
Right.
do
Like
you
we
run
ran out of
out of money? How do you run out of
that's
$1 billion?
ridiculous. But like that's happening like all over. So
Yeah,
we took like the other route, which is like no money raised, like
just
my
straight
wife
bootstrapping.
and yeah, just bootstrap, and like it was I'm on a podcast, by the way. It was it's hard for a few years because when you don't, lose money, and when you don't like when you're very careful with your growth, you have to like work really hard at SEO and
Mm-hmm.
try to get Google rankings up and do real sales and do wholesale and do all these, different types of marketing that are great, but they kind of like are slow build.
Mm-hmm.
So we are doing well now, but it took years of like that hard work where, and even now, like I'm doing well, like I'm doing pretty good financially, but I haven't paid myself a salary in probably 2 years.
Wow.
Even now, you know, like we're business has money in it, but like I personally, you know, it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
And so, but you know, we're very happy and we're doing well. And you know, a lot of it is thanks to my wife, who's the CEO, who's very, very talented at different types of marketing and all sorts of things running the business. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I'll take a break.
Yeah, and I want to call out some of the points that you mentioned of like that. First, let's start with like the lawsuits, right? A few people that have been on the show have mentioned that the potential things that go wrong when it comes to the law and how the legal system isn't really as black and white as I thought it was growing up, right? And we've seen this in various cases, even just the case around cannabis legalization. There's so many different activities from everything from like prison reform to the decriminalization of like what does that look like for job opportunities, right? A year ago, someone that was selling cannabis is 2 years ago is a drug dealer. Now it's just a store owner, right? Like there are so many different levels to that. So that first part of like the legalities and like as things change and then people scamming you. So that's the first thing. And then the second round, let's talk about the scamming. Fry Fest, the work, some of the stuff that we worked in the beginning. We're seeing these documentaries. Oh, not Fire Fest. Seeing
Yeah,
some of these documentaries come out now, and it's just like, whoa, or like what is it called, Elizabeth Holmes and Dropout, One Drop, right? That all these things, and people are just selling you these dreams, and it's just like, where's the action? Where's the work? Where's really the sweat and tears? Like, where are these experiences? And so, I'm happy we get to share them here on this show because
crazy. And like, you know, I actually kind of like legal work, like dealing with the lawyers and stuff, which my wife hates it, you know, but it's important. Like, you have to protect yourself. The
absolutely.
scamming like industry is so big. Like, you hear
Mm-hmm.
Firefest and stuff, right? But almost every business deals with this. Like 2 weeks ago, a lot of people that have websites and e-commerce, there's all sorts of scams constantly, right? So they do
Yeah.
things like card spinning where they'll like charge a card like 5,000 times and like try to like get money out of your business. And you have to have all these like protections on your website. And that, or there's like, you know, thousands of people like in a foreign country calling and doing
Yep.
like orders
Scam
and
callers.
you know all this stuff. It's like not just like the Ponzi scheme guys. Like there's all stuff. So you got to protect yourself and whatever. But it's part of like the deal these days.
Yeah, and you have to just really be mindful of whatever you're doing, whether it's a simple service contract of, hey, I'm going to do these services for you, you're going to do these services for me, you're going to get this money in return, and bigger stuff like, hey, you're going to invest 200,000 in my company, and I'm going to give you X, Y, Z in the other side. But if I disappear on you, guess what? No
Yeah,
XYZ necessary. And that, we have to just really be mindful of these things. And I really love the fact that you and your wife, like I said, she started out as your girlfriend, and you guys got married, and congrats on that. Are building this business. So I want to talk about that. What are some of the adventures and misadventures and like experiences behind being in a company with a family member, right? Essentially a partner.
yeah. I think like majority of people like either avoid it or think it's like crazy. Not everybody. There's I know a lot of people that work together, but I think the opposite. Like it works so well because I mean, if you have two different careers, like you have to manage different schedules and different this and that. Like I think it's great. Number one. Number two is like when you have your own company, there's like so many different jobs within the company, and so you're usually doing different things. So it's not like you're like on top of each other. Like I
Mm-hmm.
run the wholesale business and like some of the operations, and she does like all the marketing and all the e-commerce and the inventory management and the finance. She does a lot of stuff. Um, and we have like a couple employees and we have all these agencies and whatever. So I think it's one really awesome and you know it gives you a lot to talk about. That what else are you going to talk about? So that's really cool. And then you're interested in the same things and you're learning the same things, and we're like learning about how to do better marketing plays, SEO plays,
Mm-hmm.
better PR, better affiliate marketing, better social media marketing, better sales, better, hiring sales people. All of these like things that a lot of businesses deal with, but each one is like such a cool area that if you're like with your wife, and you don't want to just like watch Netflix at night, which I watch a lot of TV, to be fair, we could be like, yo, what do you think about, like yesterday we were in the jacuzzi, like we have a nice jacuzzi in our building, but we're like, what do we think is like the next move for like trying to find the perfect real estate spot in Brooklyn for our next business? Because we have to think about flood zones and we got to think about all these things, and we're like brainstorming, it's fun.
Yeah, and I previously worked with one of my previous partners, and it's interesting because you have to build up that synergy, right? It takes a lot of energy, and it also takes like set, like you said, you each have different roles, so definitely clarifying those roles, because it can become a thing where it's like, who's in charge, stepping over toes. And I'm seeing a lot of like power couples, right? Like that's what a lot of people are calling them, these power couples that are running these amazing companies or family businesses, and it can become very high quality, high impact, but you just have to be conscious that, okay, we need to truly be a team, and we have to have good communication both in our personal life and our business life. So if something is not working, we got to talk about it. We got to bring it up. We got to tackle it. If something's working well, we got to talk about it, figure out how we can do more of that, and just really build up that. I don't like to use the word balance, because balance almost kind of says it's like equal or something like that, but it's more of a synergy. It's working together. It's yin yang, and it's flowing in a nice pattern.
Important things like, one, conscious, because like our new company is literally called the Conscious Cannabis Project.
Oh, nice.
Excited about that. And then number two, conflict management, I think is like one of the big issues today. Not me and my wife get along really well, so like I'm not really talking about that, but that's the same thing. But like within your business, it's like so much going on, and just the littlest thing could trigger someone. Like we were talking about who gets what equity for our new company, because we have like 5 partners, 6 partners. They're all women except for me. I'm like a minority, which is good. Like, we're all, a lot of the stuff we do now is like 95% women-owned business type stuff. We're like very proud of that, even though I'm the guy here talking. But there was a conflict, like, I thought I was going to get more equity kind of thing, and we got like pretty heated. For people that really love each other, business partners, we've been working together for years. And so that type of growth is like super important. The one example, like I think I was listening to like Tim Ferriss, and one of like the VC companies, maybe it was like I forget which one it was, but their culture is like, their entire culture is like, do like everything you can to disagree with me. That's like what I want. But in like normal like business and like, or like a relationship, that's like not the culture, right?
Yeah.
You've established that ahead of time, like, oh, I really want your, like, not just feedback, but like give it to me, like that's how we're going to get better. So that's, I think, like an extreme example, but working towards like that type of environment, even in the marriage, I could work on that type of stuff too,
Yeah, so because it's like, no matter what happens, let's just really be authentic and raw and transparent with each other, because I think that is what causes breakdowns, whether it's business partnerships ending, divorces, any type of, we're working together and now we're not. And it really requires that clear, like you said, conscious communication and conscious connection, because if you're not really prioritizing that, something so small can literally transform the entire working relationship. And I heard the story the other day with Shonda Rhimes, where she was with ABC, and then she reached out to ABC, and ABC is owned by Disney. And she's like, hey, can I get some tickets for like my family to go to Disney World? I think it was like her sister, and it was like 3 or 4 tickets, like a small amount. It wasn't like, oh, I want to rent the park out for myself for a week. It was a small amount. It was a very small ask. And I think they said no, or they just took forever to get back to her, or didn't get back to her at all. And she left. She's like, okay, we're going to Netflix. And now Netflix has Shonda, right? And so, these being communicative and just being respectful and conscious of like, I want to have a great relationship, working or personal, with this person. And what does that look like? And it's those small moments that are going to be the big decision makers of, I'm pretty sure ABC lost millions, probably even $1 billion because of that.
Everybody and their brother has seen Inventing Anna, including me.
Yeah, and Bridgerton, Inventing Anna, and there's
Bridgerton too.
Yeah, Shonda is Bridgerton, so like that's her team there, and I'm pretty sure there's more coming. So
that's That's great. That's a good one. Good story.
Yeah, that's definitely amazing. And so now I want to take a little shift. You told us one of your misadventures of like that experience, but has there been anything else that has like really shook you in your entrepreneurial journey? It could be with this company or before, something that you didn't expect, right? When you decided to kind of step into the field of entrepreneurship, being a business owner, kind of leading on yourself, like has there been anything that was like, whoa, I need to figure this out and I also need to share with everyone because I never saw this coming?
Yeah, I mean, what comes to mind is like for our current business, TribeTokes, there's been a few things like that are pretty crazy where, everyone's pretty much heard of this like a year, maybe 2 years ago, there was the vape crisis, and where like a few people smoked some vapes that had vitamin E in them, which and like died.
Oh.
And so then what happened was, and those were people like in illegal businesses,
Mm.
which I have no problem with legal businesses, by the way. But they were, when you make a vape, like we make vapes with like pure cannabis oil. There's nothing else in it. It's like super pure. If you put these other things in it, like fillers or like things to water it down, basically,
Mm-hmm.
it's easier to make and it's cheap and all this stuff. And if you put vitamin E, which vitamin E is like good for you to eat and stuff, to smoke, very bad. Like people really died. Not a lot of people. Like not. I feel bad for people that died.
Yeah.
Like 3 people died, and then so the whole vape industry like shut down. Like
Mm-hmm.
um, it was all over the news. The Trump administration like passed these laws and stuff. There's all these like crazy regulations now, and for like a couple months, 6 months even, we're primarily a vape company. Like that's like
Mm-hmm.
most of our money shut down. Like, and so we
Gone
were like, oh
overnight.
shit, what are we gonna do? You know what I mean? And in cannabis, especially, the laws are constantly changing. So there's been other things like that as well, but that was probably like the biggest one. And so we're like, we've been working for like 3 years at this point, and now we literally have no money, no sales. Like you're not even like allowed to do anything. So that it's crazy, but there's a lot of people don't think of like these big risks to their business
Mm-hmm.
where it's good to plan. You really have to think about that stuff. For example, like I'm looking at properties in Brooklyn to do this manufacturing business to make products for next year, and like my two favorite properties are in flood zones. And like
Oh,
I'm looking at the flood maps and I'm like, shit, like during Sandy, these areas were underwater, and we're
wow.
gonna have like millions of dollars in equipment. And so if that gets flooded, like I'm screwed. Like we're gonna lose like everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so I probably obviously shouldn't move into those places, but I didn't. We're like, I was almost ready to sign a lease, and then someone was like, "Yo, do you know about like flooding in Red Hook?" And I was like, "Oh, that's probably something to think about." So yeah, I think it's just these like unexpected risks that probably every business not necessarily encounters, but like definitely could encounter. They think it's like it would never happen to me, but guess what? Like something's probably coming. So we're trying to every year, you get a little bit smarter and do the best you can. Um, and so that's kind of like, I guess, preparing for risks and trying to manage that type of thing.
Yeah, and risk management, especially as an entrepreneur, is crazy because you think you did all your due diligence, you feel like you did all your homework, and like you said, now this guy pops out. It's like, hey, what happens when it rains a lot? And you're just like, oh, you're right. and I was actually in Brooklyn yesterday by the Navy Yard, and I like these little things will make you notice. I saw this little gate around some plants, and it was just like rain drain or something like that, water drain. And I'm like, why would they need that? And I was like, oh, that makes sense. Little things like that make a big difference. And so just being mindful of what you're doing and not just the stuff that you can see face value, but what else could happen, right? Right now it's sunny, it's great, it looks amazing, lots of sunlight. But what happens literally when it rains? What happens when it's snowy? Is this place accessible? Can we still build and continue to grow our business? Like you said, we're putting on the line millions of dollars worth of equipment, staff, the facility itself, and we don't know what industries are changing. So there's a lot of things that happen in our world. Even just now, COVID pandemic,
Oh
everyone
yeah,
you're home. That's it. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like everything is shut down. The vaping epidemic, everything is shut down. And I know there's also like a series of campaigns where there was like, what is it? Truth.org or some organization like that, where just like, like there's like a campaign about like bury the vape. I just saw like the commercial where like burying the vape. And so I'm pretty sure that definitely impacted the industry as well. I know it was, that campaign was targeted more so towards like teenagers and young adults
Yeah,
that were, yeah, and
good.
like you said,
There
using
is a lot of
machines that were
problems.
not healthy. Yeah, go ahead.
Nicotine vapes are
Uh-huh.
very different than cannabis vapes, like good ones. But they kind of a lot of people group them together like it's the same type of thing. It's not, it's completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's a side note, but that's like where a lot of this stuff comes from. You could, and any business could get grouped kind of in with somebody else almost, even though you're like the good guy.
Yeah, and I think that also happens in you mentioned like direct sales, multi-level marketing, right? There's a lot of bad guys and there's also very good companies in there that you have to be able to and I see it seems like you like a challenge in industries, real estate, good guys, bad guys, and it's so easy to get grouped along with the bad stuff. And so like
Oh,
you
I
said,
have real estate stories, but I don't know if we have the time to get
yeah,
into.
we have time. I would love another story about some real estate stuff. Yes, please go ahead.
There's another scam story, but like it's important. So I was doing real estate for a few years, kind of in between and like overlapping with this business. And um, you know, I don't know the moral of this story, right? It's just like you gotta just watch out for the red flags, I guess, and like the partners. It's just really, important when especially new people that you don't know. So anyway, we put it together a little team. It was like two friends of mine and this other guy we met, and we had this amazing business plan where we were gonna buy all of these properties from banks where they're like foreclosures basically.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it's very hard to buy foreclosures directly from banks. Like they don't want to talk to you unless you're like a huge hedge fund, if you're like a little guy. But it's like inside thing. And so we were gonna buy like 50 houses at a time and make all this money basically because we were going to get them at like 20 cents on the dollar, like super cheap. And
Mm-hmm.
so anyway, in the end, like this guy ends up being like pretty scammy and like just dropped the ball with all those relationships. So we like lost out on all these properties we were going to buy. And then he also like looped us into this big deal on Wall Street. It was like a $500 million like
Whoa.
building that we were like helping sell, and he somehow like scammed his way into like paperwork and stuff that showed it was like happening, but it wasn't really happening. And so basically in the end, like it wasted like almost a year of me, one of my best, two of my good friends that are really smart guys, and it put us back again financially because we could have been doing other stuff.
Yeah.
And you know I think like what I learned from that is um, even when things are like so there, it's like you just the vetting process and all this stuff. It's just gonna be so thorough. Uh,
Yeah.
but again, we learned a lot in the process. So
Yeah. And no matter, we always try to look at it as like the positive sign, like we learned a lot, because otherwise it will, some stuff that has happened will make you think like, is this even right? Like, am I even going down the right path? Is it worth it? Right? It questions like, is it worth it? I could just not have all this stress and I'm choosing this life of not struggle, but this challenging path where it's like there's so many stakes, so many risks. But I think once you have the entrepreneurial calling, it just you figure out a way to get back out there. And so I'll start, we're coming to the end of our conversation, but I want to ask, how do you manage, your mental health while all of these experiences are happening? Like, how do you stay well, mentally, physically, emotionally? Because it does take a toll. Even if you figure it all out, we're all humans. We have our emotions, we have our feelings, our thoughts that go into it when you're experiencing these high highs or these low lows. So how do you balance that? Manage that, not balance, manage
yeah,
that.
a lot of stuff. I think I like coaches, right? So I think that's great. Like I
Mm-hmm.
and coaches and or like people you follow, even whatever, they kind of like force you to do things almost. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, like I have a personal trainer and we just book them like every week. So like I can't miss the workout. I already paid for it, kind of thing. But that helps, right? Like I have my meditation kind of app, like it's the Sam Harris thing. It's called like Waking Up. I paid for like the annual subscription, so it was like $500. So I use that a little bit. Um, my family's big in nutrition and stuff, so that all that stuff helps. Um, but I as a parent, and you can relate to this, sleep and energy is like such a problem.
Yeah.
But along the same lines, like what's been helping me is going to the doctor, like going to the sleep doctor, going to the nose guy for snoring. Like I've been going to the doctor a lot, different guys, and or like coaches or people that could help, and you just improve. You could also do stuff on your, research stuff on your own, whether it's any topic, productivity, energy management, sleep, creativity, whatever. So, I am a pretty happy, very lucky guy, but the sleep and the energy, really takes a toll on you. And like you could be when you're on low sleep, you're in a little bit of a bad mood. You're not as good with like the family. You're like not as nice to people, even though like I'm a little guy, right? And so that's a lot of people have like a lot of other stuff they're dealing with. I don't want to like underplay it, but every day is a challenge. Like today, at one point, I was grumpy because I was like tired, and so I think the best things like to do, right, are get advice, get help, like, and it makes like little progress. And there's so many good resources.
Mm-hmm.
My friend who's like an amazing coach, like is doing some free coaching for like his certification. Um, and I signed up for like 3 sessions with him for like some business coaching or whatever. So, there's kind of like those key areas of like business knowledge, like energy management, nutrition. My uncle's amazing. He's very famous. His name's Dr. Furman.
Mm-hmm.
So people could like look him up. All these different any topic, right? But there's these areas where like it really could affect you. Mindfulness, right, is a big area. Meditation is a big area. Um, you know, and finance, right? Doing when you have more money, I don't think helps, right? So like, all that stuff is super important. And so I just try to get a little bit better. Like, back to the James Altucher stuff when we first met. I do think about that type of stuff, a lot. Like get 1% better every day and try to improve. And I have, we hired a weekend nanny. My wife was like, worried about me because I had low energy. I was taking 2-hour naps. I was like, just couldn't even do anything at a certain point. And so you got to just figure it out, those issues, because a little bit more sleep or a little bit of better nutrition could like make you all this money in your business by like just showing up better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I used to dismiss the positive effects of rest. Now I'm like, my body doesn't even allow me to push too hard to stay up. Like I will fall asleep anywhere. Like my body's just like, hey,
That's
we're
good.
tired now. We need a nap. Like I've legit fallen asleep at parties, at dinner.
Yeah, I can't do it. So I take, my nice edibles that we make now, and it knocks me out the right time.
Yeah, I have literally just like kind of leaned back at like the dinner table and I'm just like, wake me up when the food's here. This is what I want. Just I need a nap. Like I have to take a nap. And my friends make fun of me. They're like, you're a grandma. I'm like, it's okay. I'm gonna take this nap. And then when my food gets here, I'll eat and then I'll be energized and then we can go hang out and do but I have to take a nap. So thank you so much for sharing your stories, your adventures, your misadventures. And before you head out, what type of advice would you want to share with the listeners, right? There people listening are entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs or working in corporate. But what advice do you have for folks that may want to take the entrepreneurial path or just want to switch it up or maybe entrepreneurial at their organization that they're working at?
Yeah. A couple things come to mind, but like one thing is you might have heard of Tiago, who does building a second brain. He has like one of the biggest, most successful online courses. It's like a cohort, I guess it's called. It's like a live kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that whole topic of knowledge management and like organizing your productivity, it's really amazing if you can kind of get that right. If you could kind of organize your life and work um, in a way where like just your note taking, your projects, like just getting stuff out of your head into like your tasks. And I found that to be like a super great resource. It's expensive, but really good as a topic. So that would definitely be like something I would check out for people. And then just generally, as an entrepreneur, you gotta like pick a couple things to like go deep into. And they're pretty obvious, like what's gonna make you money, right? And like one area, what my wife has done is like we've hired all these agencies, like marketing agencies, like SEO agencies. She
Mm-hmm.
ended up kind of teaching herself a lot of stuff and became really good at SEO. And like the most competitive, but like probably the best place on the planet to like compete is Google, right? Because you could get to like page one or page two, even page three, you could like do really well with whatever you're doing. And so she invested heavily in herself on that and like is now crushing it. Like if you Google weed carts, we don't even sell like weed necessarily yet. Page one, I think, the
Nice.
company, right? Like maybe number 6 or 7. So that took years of her working on that stuff. But so that's like there's these areas I think to invest in like your knowledge or your experience. Like I'm pretty good at wholesale and distribution and like if you want to get a product into stores or you want to get a product into Europe, like I've done a lot of cool stuff like that and I've like worked hard. I know what to do with Spain customs. I know what
Mm.
to get products into Brazil. Like, and I just spent a lot of time on that. I think it was like interesting and there's like money to be made. So I think the advice is like just, maybe people are already doing something or maybe they're thinking about something, but they got to pick some areas where it might take a while, 6 months, a year to like do the work of like either learn and practice and try things. But that's like, you got to kind of go for some things. And a lot of companies just are like a little too general or they're doing what everyone else is doing. You got to say, okay, well, let's pick something. You're probably going to pick the wrong thing, but like, let's like PR and like, you know, let's try to get good at it. And like we did that. We were like, okay, like let's look at where are people writing about this topic. Okay, like who wrote it? Like how did the company get promoted on that website? They and I could just reach out to all those people. So you just kind of like go down these like holes of like figuring it out. And that's like I think the entrepreneurial road basically is like going down these holes of like topics and areas.
Yeah, and just like developing your skill set and just not, I wouldn't say becoming all, just becoming well versed in whatever topic that you want to pursue and just recognizing that it's going to take time, like you said, 6 months, a year, and it can even take longer. So taking the time to make a commitment and then researching and learning as much as you can and truly investing in yourself inside of that topic. Thank you so much for being here with us, Greg. For folks that are listening or watching, you'll be able to find some information down below in the description as well as in the show notes of how to reach Greg on social media, as well as the link to TribeTokes. Definitely get your vapes and CBD from them. And then as they open up their, it's a dispensary? I want to use the right word. Dispensary.
Yeah,
What is
so
it?
like in 2023, we're going to be selling 2 dispensaries. So if you're in New York, you go to a dispensary,
Yes.
you'll see TribeTokes on the shelf. I promise you.
Yes, let's go. Let's make it happen. And thank you so much. And we'll catch you all in another episode of Doing the Most, the Misadventures of Entrepreneurship. Thank you.
Having me.